Hi, friends. This is Dr. Arpita Gupta Dipalma, and you're listening to my podcast, From Pissed Off to Poised. This show is for busy women physicians and professionals just like you who are ready to take control of their emotions while learning how to excel in juggling all the things they are responsible for in life. It's for overextended mamas who are trying to figure out how to work smarter, not harder. It's for multitasking women who are tired of playing the role of the angry and resentful air traffic controller, who simply want to learn how to create a life that is more calm, intentional, and joyful for themselves. My goal is to help you learn how to eliminate the overwhelm and maintain your composure in high-stress situations that you face with the demands in your day-to-day life. Because I get you guys, this was totally me. You are not alone. I invite you to embark on your journey of transformation with me. Enjoy the listen. Hi, guys. Today, we're going to dive into two big topics that are deeply connected, and those are compassion and vulnerability. These are key to incorporate as we move towards making changes for self-improvement, especially when we're dealing with tough emotions like anger, especially when we're trying to figure out how to make that change, when we're showing up that way all the time. In order to work through those negative emotions, we have to have compassion for ourselves, knowing that we're doing our best to make those changes and to improve. And we also need to be vulnerable, because when we allow for this, we have the ability to be open to these other emotions and then be open to sharing with others and have curiosity, which in turn allows us to show up with compassion. The compassion we have fosters vulnerability, and our vulnerability then allows for more compassion. So let's start by breaking it down. I'm going to take these two components in more detail with you. First, we're going to talk about compassion, and then we'll move into vulnerability. Both of these are essential, and together they will help you work through your emotions in a more healthier and constructive way. All right, so let's start with compassion. When we talk about compassion, especially self-compassion, we're talking about giving ourselves grace, giving ourselves the grace to say, I'm doing the best I can. And sometimes our knee-jerk reaction is to judge ourselves instead when we are angry or frustrated or overwhelmed. That's kind of like what we end up doing, and we don't even realize that we're doing it, okay? We have these crappy sentences that we're saying to ourselves when we find ourselves falling into old habits of being reactionary with the anger. And so it's easy to have the underlying dialogue in our brains that's self-deprecating or beating ourselves up, and we may not even be fully aware of it. So what if we could build that awareness? And what if we could stop beating ourselves up? If we want to do it, we can. Instead of beating yourself up, I want you to remember to see anger for what it often is. It's a mask for deeper feelings like that hurt, the guilt, disappointment, betrayal, whatever it is, all those other negative emotions that I've talked about. When you can muster up that compassion for yourself in the moment, it allows you to pause and take a step back and then understand that nothing has gone wrong just because you're feeling angry, that you're not bad for reacting in this way. You're human. This is a normal human response at times, and it's okay. In fact, when you offer yourself compassion, you start to see your reactions with more clarity. You begin to understand, oh, okay, this is anger showing up because there might be something else actually going on that's more hurtful, and I don't like feeling that. Compassion will say, I've got me. I can figure it out. I'm not being my best self right now, and it's okay. I'm going to figure out why. Here's the thing. Self-compassion is especially important because we often carry shame around the anger that we have. We might feel broken or think that something's wrong with us because we keep reacting this way, and we're not able to control it anymore. We always keep showing up angry, or we go to that as our go-to. But this isn't really true. Imagine if you had a 5-year-old version of yourself come to you, very angry, very upset, feeling out of control. In that moment, would you belittle or shame this 5-year-old version of yourself for not having their shit under control, not having their reaction under grips? There's no way. You would never do that. Instead, you'd probably kneel down, look at them in the eye, and ask them what was wrong or how you could help them or comfort them in that moment. All right? You would show up with kindness and compassion. So that's exactly how I want you to start to treat yourself when these emotions come up for you. Treat yourself as you would the 5-year-old version of yourself. Be gentle, be kind. Know that you're not broken or bad. You're just working through it with more awareness developing. And that's something that you should be proud of. And when things don't go perfectly, because let's face it, sometimes we react in ways we're not proud of, I want you to try to approach it instead with curiosity instead of judgment. Ask yourself what activated me and set me off in that reaction. Instead of having criticism for yourself, bring curiosity and view it as a chance to learn and grow. So, first step here is talking about compassion, showing up with compassion and kindness and love for yourself, knowing that you're building that awareness and you're working on making changes. All right, let's move on to vulnerability now, which vulnerability, in my opinion, is a lot harder to embrace because it's scary. And I'll tell you, it's, if not more important, just as important as having compassion for yourself. Vulnerability is about being open, especially with yourself. It's letting those feelings, even the uncomfortable ones like anger, come up and be felt without trying to shove them back down. It's embracing those emotions like a labor pain, okay? Just being there present and sitting with it. We often avoid vulnerability because we're afraid. We're afraid to expose ourselves in ways that bring on the perception of us not being in control. Sometimes we're scared we'll get lost in these heavy emotions and we're not going to be able to snap out of it. So it makes sense why vulnerability is so scary. So instead of facing the negative emotions that we have in that moment, we instead react, avoid, or resist them. And this can keep us stuck in old automatic ways of handling things instead of finding better ways to process those emotions. And I talked about this in detail in episode 9. So if you need to go back and listen for a refresher, go do that, because that is going to really kind of remind you about how we can get a handle on those negative emotions instead of showing up with these unproductive ways instead. So here's the thing. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you actually create space for those negative emotions to move through you. And that's when you start seeing your reactions for what they really are. You begin to notice, hey, this isn't anger coming out of nowhere. It's connected to something deeper, something that I'm scared to feel because I'm not allowing myself to be vulnerable. Vulnerability gives you access to that deeper part of yourself. And in doing so, you gain the clarity to act from a more thoughtful and compassionate space. Being vulnerable also helps us connect with others. And most of us think of vulnerability with regards to how we interact with other people. It's so easy to feel isolated in our anger and our struggles because we choose not to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And it makes sense because it's scary as shit to do this, okay? This fear of rejection, fear of being made fun of, fear of further being ostracized or isolated, and even the fear of like the not getting the reciprocation or the comfort from the person that we're trying to reach out to, all lead us to not opt into being vulnerable. And honestly, just saying it out loud sounds so scary to me. Like, why would I even want to do that? But if we can overcome that fear and take the risk to open up and share with the people that we have trusted and have intentionally selected to share with, we can begin to realize that we're not alone, that we have the support. We can begin to mitigate that isolation by building the connections with others. And this is what is incredibly healing. From here, we can talk about the real power of vulnerability, which is repair. After you have an outburst or a reaction, vulnerability allows you to step back, reflect, and if needed, apologize. It's called rupture and repair. Vulnerability allows us to acknowledge and have the courage to admit that there's been a rupture, that something has not gone well, that we've kind of broken a connection, lost a little bit of intimacy. And when we do this in our communication, that is being vulnerable, we've allowed for the first step in the repair. Another way I like to think about it is deciding what's important for me. In this interaction, is being right in the argument or this anger outburst more important? Or is maintaining a connection by moving towards a repair more important to me? Which feels easier in a more relaxing space? Which energy would you prefer to really be in? Vulnerability gives you the ability to repair ruptured interactions and relationships rather than letting the anger damage them and lose that connection and intimacy. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea. I mean, what I'm honestly trying to say is that we can choose how we want to show up. We can be in a constant pull push state where we feel the pressure because we're in an angry, activated state. Or we can choose to relax into that vulnerability where we decide that the repair is more important. And it initially might be more scary to make that jump to move towards that repair, but it lands us in a much more relaxing, comfortable space. So, which would you prefer to be in? What feels easier for you, not just in this moment, but for your entire life if anger has become your automatic go to reaction? We are all humans. I've said this so many times. And so we're not going to be perfect here. It's going to come back up for us at times. That perfectionism with not ever being angry doesn't exist. So we're going to mess up and we're going to fall back into old patterns and we're going to get activated when life piles on. And when that happens, I want you to meet yourself with compassion and ask, what is the gift in this situation? Okay. Sometimes the gift is just having that simple awareness by realizing what set you off so you're better prepared next time. Or maybe it's recognizing that you've allowed yourself to be vulnerable to admit that I didn't show up as my best self, but I'm going to apologize now and make amends and grow from this. I'm going to repair that rupture. That's what evolving looks like. It's moving forward even when it feels kind of messy. So if today's conversation sparked something in you that you want to explore further, I'd love to invite you to schedule a discovery call with me. I really enjoyed talking to so many women about how they have shifted from that reaction to response. And all of this, as I've talked about, starts with the awareness, but also so important is having that compassion for yourself to acknowledge that you are human and it's a normal reaction. That shame that has held you back from wanting to make a change or from sharing with others how you're showing up is something that you can process through and overcome, and then develop the courage to show up with the vulnerability so that you can acknowledge that you want to make a change, so that you can work through the repairs with the people that you want to build further connection with. I'm starting my new hybrid group coaching program next week, and there's still time to join. We will be talking about this and all the other things that are important and really kind of pressing on people's brains for what they're wanting to work through. You can visit my website at ThoughtWorkMD and click on the Work With Me tab to find more about the group cohort that's starting next week, or just reach out to me, DM me, or send me a message, or send me a chat through the website on the Contact Me page, and we can talk about what you want to do next. Until next time, I want you to be kind to yourself, and remember, compassion and vulnerability are the keys to your next step, to your evolution, to your transformation. All right, see you next time. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of From Pissed Off to Poised. Remember, transformation is a journey, not a destination, so enjoy the ride. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review From Pissed Off to Poised on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback supports my mission to get this podcast out to help other women physicians and professionals like you on their path to creating a more peaceful life with more intention and more joy. I enjoy reading every message I get with your input and feedback on my journey, so keep them coming. And if you have a friend who might enjoy the listen, please share this episode and show with them. Lastly, if you want to learn more about my coaching programs and course offerings, check out my website at www.thoughtworkmd.com. Feel free to reach out to me to learn more about investing in yourself through one-to-one coaching so you can start living the life you've always wanted. This show is for general educational and entertainment purposes only. Life coaching is not a substitute for therapy or medical treatment.